and the growth in mobile payments penetration is next to none. Furthermore, Africa has a rapidly growing population. So if you look at that, that juxtaposes the issue of infrastructure demand due to a growing population, but at the same time, the growth of financial technology uptake. So what we are going to be discussing today is how payments is actually a catalyst for the development of infrastructure in Africa. And without further ado, I'll go right into the conversations. So let's consider the major infrastructure gaps in Africa, which are huge, But when we look at that, I'd like to start with you, Mr. Jude, and I'd like you to give us your opinion on how you think payments is actually driving the gap closure that we have in infrastructure. We know Africa has an major infrastructure deficit when you look across the various industries, right, and ecosystems. But considering that payments is growing very fast, the uptake in the way that the payment space is actually catalyzing, the growth of infrastructure in Africa. Jude, would love to hear your opinion on this.
Okay. Well, in my own opinion, I think that looking at the development and how the evolution of payments is happening, you'd want to consider that how we can quickly step into closing these gaps is using payments as a means of having inflows, considering how Africa, what we really require for infrastructural development is all about inflows that can come in and how well we can get them as cheaply as possible. Now, a major gap that I see in this regards is in terms of the diasporans, that the inflows that are coming from diasporans living outside of Africa. We all know, according to what the World Bank has said, the kind of volumes that come in. And then if you take Nigeria, for example, is about 4% based on from MBS, statistics from MBS, about 4% of the GDP. Now this is readily available if we can develop our payment system such that it is seamless and allows these inflows to come in and as cheaply as possible. It is a veritable source of monies that can be there available for the government to use for infrastructural development.
Thank you, Jude. So you mentioned some very critical points. You talked about inflows. You talked about the fact that today there is a major ecosystem of diaspora out there, and definitely monies are being remitted into Nigeria. And then you did mention that we as a country, and in Africa, not just in Nigeria, across Africa, the parameters are almost as similar. You mentioned how those inflows need to be targeted well to be received by the government so that they can form the right form of inflow required to fund several infrastructural development. Thank you for that. So I would like to now I'll come back to you, Jude, on this. If I let you go. One more question. So when you talk of inflow, a lot of information is out there, but let's look at data. The fact that, like you mentioned, there's inflow, there are other sources of information out there. How can you say that fintech and payments, can leverage on the value of data to actually drive development in Africa? What's your view on the value of data and how we can leverage it?
Well, data we know in the current state of things is more or less a black hole for development. Data gives you incredible amounts of information. Now, for the fintech, we do not, the fintechs are not regulated, so to speak, like the regular traditional banks. And so when you say in terms of trying to develop individuals, consumers, and then the SMEs, which is the bane of development right now, you're looking at having a situation where you will be able to manage your risk in giving out credits and payments to these people that would help them for development. So data would be your veritable source for minimizing your risk, because you would have to develop or determine a pattern that suits or fits this niche of the market for your basically for economic growth.
Thank you so much. Now you said something again with respect to data. Mr. Jude was very clear that if we can channel the value of data right, we can actually harness, the potential of a huge untapped market, which is in Nigeria and in Africa. So I'll go now, Mr. Apoche, I'm coming to you now. With respect to, I'll take on from what Jude said. We always talk of the bottom of the pyramid, we talk of, the unbanked in Nigeria, we talk of the huge population that Africa has, and like Jude said, with data, we can actually penetrate and get to the very bottom to be able to add value in the payment industry. So my question to you, or the conversation I'd like us to have right now, it's not really a question, this conversation, is how can payments, leveraging data, be able to drive development down into the bottom of the pyramid to reach the unbanked, the underbanked, and even the people that need to be banked some more, so that we can grow the economy and infrastructure development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good day, everyone, and thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Well, let me start my conversation from what it means to achieve development in Africa.
Thank you.
And what are the issues that we have to deal with. So, for us as Africa to develop, we need to deal with issues that we are facing today, which include poverty, ease of doing business, or the difficulties that we face in doing business, intra-African trade. We need to deal with the wide income gap between those who have and those who do not have. We need to build infrastructure because there is lack of infrastructure. Now, if you want to address any of these challenges, whether it's from public policy perspective or from those who are in the private sector, then data becomes very relevant. With appropriate data, you can have informed decisions. Policy planning and formulation will be data-driven. Execution also will be data-driven. In companies also, strategies will be driven by data, not just doing things for the sake of doing it. So data becomes very relevant. To deal with any of these issues, the huge population of Africa, and particularly those who are economically excluded, first, before you talk of financial exclusion, to require having appropriate data. You can't talk of the bottom of the pyramid if you don't have the data. Who are those at the bottom of the pyramid? What are the issues that we deal with daily? When you want to build, do you build so that they will come and adopt, or you build based on their daily needs? Are you looking at it from the supply dimension only, or also from the demand dimension? If you don't have data on them, it becomes difficult to say that you, as an industry, Fintech will serve as a catalyst for development. What are the social issues confronting them? What do they need really? If you do, why would they not adopt? Because today there is a wide gap. When you talk of financial technology, there is a wide gap between the supply and the demand side. I would say there is oversupply and there is another demand, because the gap, the adoption gap, is very wide. So you need data to be able to plan well, to be able to build your strategies, and also to be able to execute, both at the level of government, which is public institutions, and for businesses that operate in Africa. I'll keep it at that for now.
Thank you so much. And you've opened up a lot of opportunities for conversation here, Mr. Gadan. Thank you. So I'd like to go deeper on one of the points you made where you said there's a huge gap. You feel in your perspective, you believe that there is higher, the supply, there's oversupply and under demand. And I'd like us to now zero into the youthful population that we have in Nigeria and of course Africa, but let's start with Nigeria. I believe that the characteristics here translate. So my question is, if for payments for us, we're sitting here, this is a Fintech conference, we're here discussing payments. If payments were to take the lead as we believe it should, because it's one of the fastest growing industries, we're churning out unicorns and all that, so we definitely should lead. If payments were to take the lead in that, trying to close that gap and being relevant to the youthful population, which we know is the majority of our population today, what would you say are 1, 2, 3? I would say let's leave it at two critical things that we must do in the payment space, be able to be relevant to that mass market of youthful population in Nigeria.
Okay, the first on my list will be perceived usefulness. You need to deal with that. What do they perceive? Whether it's the youthful population or it's the older population, whatever you offer as an industry in relation to payments must be perceived as being useful. And that speaks to the question of understanding their needs, having appropriate data on them. The second one will be perceived ease of use. Because human behavior when it comes to adoption, and in this case we are not just discussing adoption, which will be at individual level, but we are discussing diffusion, which is mass adoption of payment services and solutions. Then the perception of the consumers becomes very relevant. So you must also look at perceived ease of use. You offer solutions that only those at this conference have the education and the ability to use, or you are offering solutions that the youth in Africa and in Nigeria, irrespective of their socioeconomic condition, will be able to use. Because when we say Nigeria has a huge youthful population, it is not only those who are seated in conferences like this, whether virtual or physical. It means the entire population. And if it is the entire population, it means that the services and solutions that we deliver, whether they are innovative or they are existing ones that we are trying to redesign, must be something that speaks to them. That way, we'll be able to reach a wider spectrum of the population, rather than focusing on solutions that speak only to those who are already included. Because a major reason why we have not been able to achieve diffusion, particularly in relation to digital solutions, is because we are talking only to those who are already included. And the opportunities out there are more with those who are excluded than those who are included. The competition that we have defined today for ourselves as an industry is one where we are competing for those who are already included. The real opportunity out there for us is in those who are excluded.
Thank you so much. You talked of the perceived usefulness, relevance, and then the perceived ease of access and use. And then the final point you made, which is instead of everyone going for the defined pie, create a bigger pie. There's a bigger pie out there. Why? We should definitely, for the fintech, for the payment space to play the role it should in development, we should bite the bullet and dare ourselves and go out there to the uncharted market and go for it. Thank you. So Maki, I'm coming to you now, based on, beyond Express Pay, your experience in the industry, and just taking on from, those points that we've been having, which Mr. Dada, very well detailed. I would like to ask, with respect to going now, taking payment solutions into the uncharted markets of the financially excluded, like you mentioned. Maki, I just want to, okay, she's right there, thank you. I just want to ask, in your view, from your perception as an expert in this field, what innovations or developments do you think we must have in the next 5 years? What payment innovation do you believe must be forefront, in the payment space? What solutions must we prioritize for the payment space to indeed be relevant in the development in Africa based on what we've been discussing?
Okay, thank you. In the next 5 years, I see a lot of things happening. I mean, today we're moving a lot towards cashless payments, and that will continue to happen in the industry. So we're moving also towards Internet of Things. Today we have people making payments just wearing a ring. You can use a ring and make a payment, and that's where we're moving. So we all have to ensure that we set the right technologies in place to be able to move with the rest of the world and to get these innovations working in. So I see a lot of collaboration. We need to have a lot of collaboration going forward. The MD of Zenith, in his speech earlier, he had mentioned that the banks can work with the fintechs, and the fintechs should also work with the banks. Where he actually said that the banks might not need the fintech, but the fintechs always need the banks. Let's see how that goes. Because there's a lot happening in the industry. We're seeing a lot of innovations taking place. We have to collaborate more, and that leads me to data. We have so much data in the system. What are we doing with it? We need to collaborate. If you look at the credit space, to drive an economy, you need to fuel the credit market. Money supply, money needs to get to the people who need it. And that's something we have to work on. And how do you build on that credit space? It's integrity. You have to be sure, those who are going to lend the money need to be sure that people have integrity. Can we lend to this person and be comfortable that they will repay the loan as and when due? So we need to collaborate a bit more. The CBN, the Institute of Credit Admin, where I sit as the Vice President, even the bank's NIM, that's using your NIM, using your BVN, are there things we can do together? We have so many things operating in silos. So we need to collaborate and bring everything together so that we can set up proper ways of determining integrity. And in doing all this, there's a major thing to also be wary of. It's for the users. Cybercrime is on the increase, fraud is on the increase. How do you protect the users also? So there must be policies put in place for data usage, privacy, consumer protection. We have an example that happened recently where a lending company, when a customer could not pay his money, they actually sent nasty messages about him to clients, to contacts on his phone. And I'm sure that at the time he downloaded the app, he wasn't told that the app is going to have access to his data. And there they were embarrassing him. That's going against privacy. So we have to ensure that as we develop in this space, we have to put in things to protect the consumers also. And this will get them to gain confidence in the system and be able to use it. What do I see happening again? There's a lot in terms of situation of cross-border. We're seeing a lot of things happening within Africa. We need to let that go very well, very fast. Cross-currency payments. We have to keep working on that to ensure that we're able to, why if I want to pay for something in Ghana at times, I have to go to the US to pay for it. Why can't we have collaboration to ensure that we can just pay using our currencies? Those are some of the things I think we need to look at. And things are happening. I went for a conference recently, and it was such that they had an app where, for the store, you don't need to have attendance. You just go in there, you scan the products on your phone, you pay for the same products, you walk out of the shop. And at the point where you're walking out, you can show your phone to the security person, and they see that you have paid for the item you have. These are things that are coming. The good thing is that Africa has never been behind when it comes to innovation, and I see us doing a lot more to ensure that we're leading. with this innovation. We have to continue to grow in terms of financial inclusion, which is where we have done very well with agency banking. I mean, banks can be everywhere. They can't open branches everywhere because of cost, the infrastructural cost. But today, SANEC, working with super agents like Express Lending Solutions, are able to put agents everywhere. For us as a company, we have agents in the 774 local governments in the country. And so people are able to get services. They're able to get banking services in their remote locations. So those are things I see happening. We're moving more towards cashless. Luckily, the CBN just launched eNaira. That's a wallet system. That will spread again. So in the future, I see a lot of this happening. We have to just be sure that we put in the right policies, we collaborate. I keep saying collaboration because collaboration is key for us in this industry. We have to partner to move forward and to achieve what we set out to achieve. So basically in the next 5 years, a lot will happen. We can't even predict what will happen because so much is happening so fast in our space. We just have to be ready. We have to continue to innovate. It says innovate or die. So we all have to be there, innovate, and make sure that we move within the space. Thank you.
Thank you, Maki, and I'll stay with you for now. You mentioned some critical things, such as the launch of eNaira, which I was going to come to, so thanks for getting us there. You mentioned, Mr. Agada already mentioned cross-border payments, which again you took and you spoke about. My question, or what we want to have a conversation on right now, is this innovation is great, but like Mr. Agada said, it seems to be happening within a particular space. How can you say we can take it down? So you mentioned financial inclusion when you talked of agency banking. And we know that Nigeria, Africa, Kenya, we started, Uganda, we started with that. Question, how can we penetrate deeper? What must payments do? What must the payment players like you, yourself, Express Pay, Unified Payments, all of us, the sponsors of and the organizers of this event, what must we do to ensure that the critical mass of Africa's population is not left out, that we are not innovating for a particular space alone, that we are actually going for where the bulk of the people are? What would you say are things that we must do in the next few years to be able to go deeper in penetration?
In the next few years, for us to achieve a lot more, we need to target that market. So today, a lot of fintechs are just targeting the upward market. That's not where the future is. The future is actually with the underbanked, and those are the bottom of the pyramid. So that's what we should target. We should look for solutions that target those people. As an example, banks and maybe fintechs, you design a mobile app that has a lot of fizzy things, colors, it's looking really great, looking beautiful. But you ask yourself, that app, is it really for the unbanked? What are they looking for? They just want a simple means of payment. So we need to deliberately target the right market. We need to get products that will suit that market. I once listened to Adeshinimi, one of the deputy governors, and he said, you can't be everything to everybody. You need to decide, where am I playing? Which field am I playing? So the market, the future is with the unbanked. So we need to ensure that we get out the right products to be able to bring them in. And we see a lot happening, job creation. With the agency banking alone, a lot of jobs are being created. And it's a spillover effect. So as you target those people and you grow that business, the agency banking business as an example, you are creating more jobs, you're creating things for the youths, and it's leading to youth empowerment. I mean, today, we see a lot of youths who are actually going into coding. They're learning coding from an early start. They're not waiting to graduate. They're learning coding. They're actually making money from coding. A lot of them are going into product designs and analysis. So the onus is on us as fintech companies and banks to start partnering, to partner a lot on STEM. Can we start to develop, get more people into this field? And that brings me to even gender inclusion. We need to ensure that we're encouraging young girls to go into this field, we need to build the skills gap. For a lot of us, we have challenges today with developers. because there's a bit of skills gap. So we need to partner with the universities to ensure that we're developing people from an early stage, to get enough people, because if shortage, much more than we have today of skilled labor. So we need to continue to ensure that we're developing the youth, we're working with universities, we're partnering in different ways. I'm a member of WITIN, Women in Technology in Nigeria, and over the summer, we ensure that we train a lot of young girls on coding. We bring them up, we have a summer camp to ensure that they get to see a lot more. And that's what we need to be doing as fintech, in the fintech space and with the banks together. Let's ensure that we're also giving back to the society and ensuring the resources we will need in future, we're actually preparing them today. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I'll speak to the audience. So what the summary of the conversation we've had so far is the fact that there's a lot of innovation in our space, definitely, a lot of things happening. But in the next few years, for payments to be sustained, for payments growth and development to be sustained, we have to change the trajectory of development to actually target the people that are below the radar, because they make up the mass of Africa's market. So it's almost as if, we have an ecosystem where there's competition, there's a red ocean, everybody's going for the same people. But there are people, there's a blue ocean of opportunity out there that we may not really be innovating for at this time. I love what happened yesterday where we called in students, the Fintech and Nigerian Fintech Week, the first day, which was yesterday, where students, were, encouraged and into careers in innovation, supported by organizations that partner with this event. Basically, we need to ensure that we are innovating and ensuring that the new people coming on are actually going for the market below the radar, like Mr. Agada said, the economically excluded, for innovation to be sustainable. Else we'll just find ourselves innovating in the same space. So we are rounding up now, and I'll just like Mr. Agada to give us a final word, So you kind of, and I'd like you to go this way. So as I mentioned, the launch of Naira, CBDC coming up in different places, blockchain, innovation, coding, everybody's talking about it, While you give your final word, I know that people are dropping questions. We're going to take questions. If there are any questions online, please, I believe they will be put up. But please, if you have any questions, we're going to take questions right now. But just give us a final word. All this funky, nice innovation, what do you say is the future for it with respect to development in Africa?
So the future for me will depend on what I call the 4 A's of digitization. That will be accessibility, availability, affordability, and awareness.
Thank you.
People must have access to the solutions and services that we provide. It must also be affordable to them. It must be available to them wherever and whenever they need it. And there must be awareness. If we have these 4, supported with appropriate regulatory frameworks and policies, which I would say the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing very well, then we'll be where we want to be.
Thank you. I love that, the 4 A's. So I'd like to ask if there are any questions in the room, so we can take questions, and else we'll go online. We have some questions online already. Are there any questions in the room? You could just wave your hand and the microphone will be brought to you. Okay, we'll go for the question online. I believe there was a question online. There was a Mr. Shewo online that had a question for Mr. Agada. Please, did he type his question? Okay, Shewo, we can't see your question. Is he going to speak or type it out? Can the technology team help check if they are, okay. Okay, so there's a question for Maki here, and the question goes, why do you think there's not so much collaboration in the industry in Africa? We see people buying and using services from Amazon, Google, and others, but not so much from like Kenya or even Ghana. Why do you think that is so? So Maki, that question is to you, as in, we are using solutions from outside the continent. Why not within the continent? What's stifling collaboration within?
Okay, thank you for the question. I believe that that's one of the things I mentioned, that we need to see better collaboration within ourselves. I think people are just starting to trust the ecosystem. We're building that trust and we're starting to collaborate at higher levels. You know, I mentioned that we need to see more collaboration in Africa. Now, the signing of the ACFA by most countries in Africa will accelerate digital payments, and I believe that that would accelerate collaboration. You know, and also we have the advancement in cross-border payments, which is being the Pan-African Payment Settlement System, which is coming up, and that will really help collaboration within the continent. And we're moving there. I believe that a lot still needs to go on. There is some collaboration going on. It's not like we don't have it. As an example, I'm here. I work with Access Solutions. We have Mr. Gada here who works with Unified Payments. We actually collaborate. We're competitors, but we collaborate and we do things together. We just need to see a lot more. And I think as we build confidence in the system within the African continent, we will see a lot more collaborations between countries. And it has to be a deliberate effort. It has to be a deliberate effort by the countries and the companies. And also remember that we're starting to see a lot of countries, a lot of companies within, if I take the Nigerian space, spreading into Africa. A lot of companies are working outside Nigeria now, so we're having them spread across. And with that, we will see a lot more collaborations, because even with them being present in those other countries, they will get people there to be able to use things here in Nigeria, pay online for them, because they will simplify the payment system. So I think as we build the payment system and the ecosystem continue to grow, we will see a lot more collaboration between African countries.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maki. Is there any other question? Technical team, please, let's have it. And just to say, that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of excitement around the CBDC, because people believe perhaps this is the silver lining that Africa needs for the central banks to be able to collaborate. You know, so this is almost like built on the blockchain technology. You know, the standardization is already in place, so the opportunities for collaboration are a lot higher. But let's see how it goes. You know, everyone is just watching to see. But if that happens well, then the collaboration within Africa will definitely rise. So is there any other question? Okay, one more, and then we're done.
Good everybody.
Good evening.
Yeah, my name is Betty Soga. We know that the revolution in the Fintech space has a lot to do with smartphones. No smartphone, no Fintech, even blockchain as it is. So I don't know, what are we doing to, when we talk about the B's, like most of these smartphones maybe produced outside the country, exchange rates, by the time you bring it to Nigeria, is too expensive for the common man, average common man in Nigeria to get. So what are we doing to get these companies in Nigeria so we can locally produce, because this is the foundation that can spread and promote fintech technology. So without it, we are not.
Thank you. Mr. Adjana, please, over to you.
Okay, I think my comment on that would be to say that we need to move from the idea that without smartphone, you cannot have innovation in payments. You can innovate in payments without smartphone. You can do that without apps. You can also do that without distributed ledger. Because the alternative is to focus only on those who are already included. And that is not where we need to be. Today, you can leverage the USSD technology to deliver digital payments. The Central Bank of Nigeria just issued a statement recently that in addition to the app that they have released for e-Naira, it will be available using USSD. Unless and until we have solutions that can serve the majority of Nigerians and Africa, we have not started. And that does not have to start with smartphone or apps. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nicely said. And I think that brings us to a good conclusion for this panel. So I'd like to thank Mr. Jude and Dr. Maki online, and I'd like to thank Mr. Agada here in questions. Please send them through and they will be fed right to our panelists. Thank you and happy collaboration for the rest of the week, Mr. Agada. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess, please take care for a picture, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panel members online. Thank you for your time. Thank you, each and every one of you. Very interesting panel session. Please, a round of applause for them again. You know, a lot of things came out from each and every one of the panel members, you know, from the fact that the statement made earlier in the morning about, you know, not being able to do fintech without the banks, and, you know, and the fintech saying that, you know, you wait and see, time will tell, you know. But hey, let's preach collaboration, because that's the way forward. The industry must collaborate, right? But I think with the way innovation is going now, you know, no one can take any monopoly whatsoever. It's just the era of disruption. So, you know, the more we collaborate, the better for the ecosystem. All right, I'd like to call on, okay, so we will end this session now, and then move to the next session online. While we do that, I'd like to find out if Jamila is online. Jamila Sharif Ayedu. Is he online? Or she? All right, so far so good. It's been an interesting day, for real. And again, one thing that has come out, you know, of this whole session is the fact that we have to reach the unbanked. We have to reach those who don't have access to, you know, all the smartphones and all the devices. Those who will be able to connect with or without data connection. Very important aspect of the fintech revolution that we must all experience. And so our members today, okay, she's online. All right, so on this note, I'd like to call on Jamila Sharif Ayedu, CEO of Credit Registry, for her own speech right now. Please, a round of applause for her. If you can hear me. Mic check. You are muted. Let's just know if you can hear us, or we can hear you.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. I've had such a great time so far. So hi, Nigeria Fintech Week 2021. I'm excited to be here. And please permit me to stand on all existing protocols. There have been some fabulous speakers today, and well done to the committee and the committee chair for this fantastic event. I am Jamila Sharif Ayedu. I am the CEO of Credit Registry. This is Nigeria's pioneer and largest credit bureau. And today I'm going to be speaking with you about scoring and how we score Nigeria. And so that's a little bit about me, but I really want to turn this around, and I would love to have you tell me a little bit more about you. And so we're going to get started. I want you to join me at a poll. You see poll at the bottom of my screen here is pollev.com/creditregistry699. If you can go to your phones, or if you're online and you have your computer, just go to your browser, type that in. Again, it's pollev.com/creditregistry699. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And the first question that I have for you is a very simple one. It's a part of our everyday life now, and I hope that I can hear your responses here very shortly. So my question here, if you can see it on your device, I just want you to type in when you get there. You can skip if you don't want to put your name. None of the information is being collected for use. But if you can see the first question on the screen, it says, what kind of smart devices are you aware of? If you have your screens up, can you just type in any smart device that you are aware of? Smart vehicles, absolutely. Tablets, iPhones. And you can see key rings, absolutely. Some cars, you can get into your car, you have a key ring, it knows all of your settings. Smart, you name it. You even have smart, there you go, tablets. Seem like tablets are very popular. Refrigerators, yes. Even security devices. When you come into your home, your security device can tell that who's entered and knows how to set the house the way it should be, and everything, absolutely. So I want you to tell me, or look at, what is it that smart devices have in common? What makes them so great when you think about all these smart devices? Cars, they can move by themselves. You come into a room, it can automatically regulate to your temperature. What they have in common is that they're automated. They're connected. They're connected to our everyday life and what we're doing and how we feel. Music can play based off of those things, right? They're interoperable. They're interactive. They're autonomous, and they're instant. Well, we looked at all of these things, and we decided that in Nigeria, we needed to have something that will be able to help consumers. We talked about getting, and we heard it earlier today, about getting to the bottom of the pyramid, helping consumers be able to get access to credit. And so we designed and developed what we have is called a smart score. And it does exactly what smart devices do. It's automated, it's connected, it's interoperable, it's interactive, it's autonomous, and it is instant. It's a numerical value that represents a borrower's creditworthiness. And it goes from 1 to 999. And I'm going to explain that. It's a bit different in Nigeria than it is in other parts of the world. And again, I'm going to explain that. But this is Nigeria's first credit score. It's a mathematical approach that predicts the future payment performance. And there is a common saying that the past predicts the future. You hear that in investment community, in the credit community, and it is absolutely true. And what it does is it enables creditors to make objective, fast, and smart credit decisions. That is what the SMART score does. So I want you to do another exercise. Again, I want to hear from you. Look at the person next to you. And if you're online, you're on your own computer, you can do this for yourself. Look in the mirror. I want you to take that range from 1 to 999, and I want you to guess the credit score of the person sitting next to you. All right? And I'll tell you a little bit about scores. It's just like in school. Like in school, the smarter you are, the higher test grades you get. With scoring, the more creditworthy you are, the higher your credit score. And so we definitely want people who are very good with credit. You'll see that they have high credit scores. And so you see the numbers are coming in. They have some pretty good people ranking there, and that range between 500 and 799. Very good. All right, we have a larger percentage just kind of in the middle range. Well, can you tell me, we had a lot of people that are in the middle range. Why did you score the person the way you did? Just type in any answer. It can be, I'm not going to give you any ideas. There's no right or wrong here. But why did you? Very good. Someone says based on perception. Maybe you know that person. All right? Oh, how he looks. Very good. Intuition. Those are some really good ones. Based on their comments on borrowing. Okay, so maybe you talk to them a little bit. Okay, some were feeling, okay, you're feeling very generous. You gave them 100. All right. Perception is always a really interesting one. The way they dress. And so if you think about scoring, This just goes to show that it is not very easy to be able to determine someone's creditworthiness from face value. So there's a lot that goes into creating a score. And the scores with credit registry, what we call our SMART score, it was developed really based off of Basel II definition of default. So it is using international best practices. It has over 300 bureau summary characteristics, and I'll show you a little bit about what that is briefly in a moment. And it is a 2 to 3 digit number. And let me go into that because in credit registry, this is where everyone gets a score. Everyone is going to get a SMART score. And what does that mean is that there is a formal financial sector and there are people getting access to credit. Those people is actually less than 10% of Nigeria's population that are getting access to credit. So that means that there's a long ways to go. So if we did scores only on that 10%, that's the thick file population, they get a score between 100 and 999. But what happens to the rest of Nigerians who are not getting access to credit in the formal sector? We also score them because they are demonstrating that they exist. They have some form of either non-formal sector financing or getting access to credit, or they at least have some identity that we can be able to determine that they are who they say they are. And so we create a thin file score for those individuals. Now, this is very important because so their prior performance can help predict their future performance as well. And this is the composition of a SMART score. As you can see, there's various characteristics here that are all used to be able to help weigh and determine a SMART score. They look at the history of your performance, look at how many lines that you have open, the credit limits on those lines, demographics, if you've paid off, how those loans were paid off, if they were paid off without any issues, the length of credit on the bureau, even to the number of inquiries that you have as far as looking for access to credit. All that weighs against and measures your score. So again, international best practices are being used. I'm going to say something here that might actually be a little bit controversial. And I won't belabor on this slide too much, but there's a lot of methodologies and ways to do scoring out there. And you would see that fintechs are taking this on front head center. Machine learning, deep learning, alternative data. How does all this compare with traditional credit scoring? We say beware of all of these artificial intelligence ways of doing scoring. While these things are very, I'm going to say, attractive and interesting, they're still fairly new, and there's still a lot to be learned by it. But the biggest thing I want to say here, while those things can still be adopted, is that human expertise is absolutely required when you're doing modeling for credit scoring. Again, models are meant to be audited. They should not just change dynamically based off of what the data is, because the data can sometimes be suspect, right? So there's a lot that has to go into that. But ideally, overall, credit scoring is the dominant approach when it comes to making credit decisions. In developed markets and developed economies, this is what has been used and what is being used, and the combination of many of these methods is absolutely welcomed, but it should not be done exclusively with a lot of these new methods as we're learning. So with that, knowing a little bit about credit scoring, I want to now ask your businesses, how many of you are actually using scoring to qualify your borrowers when they come and they apply for credit? Can you say, if you're using credit scores, type yes or type no? Okay. All right, we have some players that are using scores. We find that in our bureau, our clients that have shown a strong interest in using scores have actually been a lot of the newer entrants into the market. They're either foreign companies that have used scores before in other countries and absolutely are looking forward to using scores in Nigeria. So thank you for that information. As you can see, more of the nodes are still growing. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. There's a saying, a famous quote by Warren Buffett, who's one of my all-time favorite, is that someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. There's an evolution to credit, right? A lot of these practices are not just, you know, new today, they actually have been in existence and are being used. So in Nigeria, we have clients that are still very much decentralized. They have a lot of their decisions that are happening either directly at a branch. They can have 5 branches and they're making their decisions, you know, autonomous in those different branches. They go up that evolution. Some of them create policies and rules that are now used across all their branches, even though they're decentralized. And then some have grown to a form where now they have centralized credit. Maybe all the credit decisions are being made from the head office. And then you can continue to grow up the evolution and start utilizing more statistical methods of making decisions instead of just those that have had, say, 20 plus years of experience and using it at the head office. Decentralize, continue to centralize, but now use automation to make your decisions by using things such as bureau scorecards. And then application scores. This is now bringing the technology and expertise internally and being able to apply that. Joint odds is combining the two. From bureaus, internal knowledge and expertise from the institutions. And I want to just show a simple example as institutions are growing up this evolution path here in Nigeria. Say you get to the point where you're doing joint odds in terms of business. Here's a simple illustration of what something like that could look like. You take your bureau scores, which can go, say, for example, in this example, from 0 to 600 plus. And as a customer comes in, you would give them a bureau score. You would also do an application score, anywhere from 0 to 260 plus in this particular example. And then the combination, the joint combination of the two gives them a risk grade. So either they're risk grade 1, which is a very risky customer, all the way up to risk grade 5, which is a very good customer, depending upon, say, they have a high score and a high application score. And then the combination of those risk grades can now go into what we call a terms of business matrix. For all those that are risk grade 1 that are very risky, you cannot automatically reject them. Those that are 5, risk grade 5, you can automatically approve them, because these terms of business are constantly being monitored, changed. The ratings, the Gini, and things like that will all contribute to how this ultimate terms of business will turn out. And that way, say 95% of your decisionings can happen in an automated fashion, leaving just the middle band here to have to go to some form of underwriting. Again, these are all complex ways of doing business, but can be simplified at the outcome and allow for you to grow your business. And people always ask, well, how do you do the score? This is my last slide, and I want to show here just a quick illustration of how a complex matrix of scoring can become something that's easy for any business to be able to use. The Bureau itself collects data from various data providers across the gamut, from formal financial sector, banks, all the way to small businesses that are giving lines of credit, to retail shops, to manufacturers, telcos, you name it. We take that raw data and we then put it into various categories here and begin to segment it, understand it, categorize it, and then further be able to now make bureau characteristics out of it. These characteristics help our clients to better be able to use information to make fast, easy, smart decisions. Characteristics such as, what are the total balances that a customer may have across multiple institutions? And then they will now be able to take those characteristics and save costs in time, save costs in doing all types of analytics, and they'll be able to use that much more quickly. We have over 300 characteristics that are available in our bureau today that lenders can use to save time and cost when it comes to making decisions. They can either now invest in having their own statisticians to create their own models, Or they can now go up that spectrum of sophistication and begin to use bureau scores. And now these are scores, everything from credit risk to propensity models, to retention models, segmentation models, you name it. All of these are available today and readily available for fintechs to take advantage of to be able to cover the masses that need access to credit. And then all of this is now applied across every facet of the credit life cycle. So whether you're looking for prospecting, or if you're prospecting customers, you're acquiring them on your books, you're managing your portfolios, you can use scoring in every facet of that life cycle today. And so I turn my last question really over to you. How can we help? When we look at the financial landscape of Nigeria, there are so many areas that fintechs are filling the void. So it's a huge applause and a welcome endeavor to see fintechs enter this market so strong. They talked about the unicorns and the zebras, as the MasterCard gentleman said earlier. And so as a bureau, we're here to help be a part of that ecosystem. We see fintechs actually helping the consumers to grow from the point of where they're taking small access to credit, beginning to put that footprint, what we call a financial passport on the bureau, that allows for them to grow in their ability to get access to credit throughout their credit journey. Small access to credit today can lead to larger access to credit for mortgages, business loans, import-export, invoice financing, all the things that fintechs may not be readily able to do because they're trying to really hit the masses, that the large banks can actually be able, and the traditional banks can do. So it takes actually a combination of the two for Nigeria to ultimately succeed. So how can we help you? You can know and be aware of your own credit performance. Get your own SMART score. Know where you are. Subscribe, become a member, and be able to be a part of this ecosystem or this infrastructure to be able to utilize scores, get raw data, get characteristics, use our APIs, and be able to run your business a lot more efficiently and cost effectively. Get consultation services from us. We also do retro analysis. This is very important. If you are not sure, and if you are one of the businesses that said, no, you're not using credit scores, this is the perfect step to start. We would take the decisions that you made a year ago, for example, and tell you exactly what the scores would have been at that point you made that decision. And then we can see where those customers are today. That will help you determine were the scores efficient and effective for your decision-making processes, and if so, you can rely upon them for future business that you plan to do, thus growing your portfolios much more profitably and faster. And then finally, we have various value-added services that are available to you. You can use everything from portfolio monitoring. If you're a small business, you can use our Get Paid Faster services, which allows for you to improve upon your collections and invoice receivables. You can use things such as BVN services if you're a lender and you don't know the identity of your customers. Maybe they haven't come and provided that. We provide services such as that as well. So with that, I want to thank you. I hope you learned about scores, and most of all, I hope you learned a little bit more about the neighbor next to you, and I look forward to being a part of this ecosystem together with the fintech. So thank you so much, and back over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have questions? Before I introduce the next segment, do we have questions for our speaker? Okay. Well, thank you very much once again for that. Jamila Sharif Ayedo, CEO, Credit Registry. Please put your hands together for her once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Just going to leave that. Do we have anyone? Do we have any questions online? We have one? Okay, we do have a question though.
Okay, I'll be glad to answer questions.
Yeah, it says, in addition to traditional banks, several companies now provide soft loans to middle and low income earners. Well, I think that's a statement, that's a comment, that's not a question. Is that another question?
Yes, and actually, that statement is very, very important. I'm going to say the lending industry there is across the board. It's not only with the traditional banks. There are there's lending that's happening even at the retail space. And so absolutely, those types of clients can utilize the Bureau and share that.
All right, so we have another question here. It says, is there any form of interoperability between credit registry and these loan providers, allowing credit registry access to behavioral data of the borrowers, and in return, allowing these banks and companies access to the credit scores of customers? Is that clear? Do I take that again?
Yes, and so it is a reciprocal environment, right? We, of course, take information in. We use that information to create the various characteristics and the scores and the models, and that is made available to all the lenders and the members that are on the Bureau. The thing is that in the fintech space, and I want to maybe emphasize this, is that the fintechs, we know that you are covering so many different areas, not just lending area. You're doing everything such as insurtech, education, information. We have medical institutions that are looking to utilize this information, and the Bureau is able to support in all those different industries. So whether you are looking to just start a business and begin to advance access to credit, our Bureau is able to support you in that endeavor as well. So absolutely.
I guess we have one last question before we let you go. And it says, how do we make scoring more inclusive for a large population whose identity and transactions are not known? I'm interested in this one.
Yes, and this is, again, we're part of this ecosystem. So the one thing I must emphasize, if you are a business, whether you're a fintech, whether you're a small shop, whether you are a big bank institution, and if you are not reporting information to the Bureau, you're literally, I'm going to say, a ticking time bomb, because your customers are free agents. They can go from one institution to the other, and if your exposure is not known by other institutions, your customer can be over-leveraged, thus making it more risky for you. So as we're trying to penetrate and go down to get larger populations, that's where that in-file score comes in. There are millions of consumers on the Bureau that do not have active loans, that have a score. Fintechs, businesses can utilize that information to be able to give first-time borrowing to those individuals and to those businesses. This allows for them to get started and get a financial passport to the future for their journey. We're Nigeria's trust bank when it comes to information and data, and we want to encourage to help Nigerians, empower Nigerians to be able to be a part of this ecosystem so they can have a journey for the rest of their lives.
Well, thank you very much. I have to get her once again for Jamila Sharif Ayedon, CEO of Credit Registry. I think bottom line is we need to move beyond just paying lip service, the whole discussion around financial inclusion. We need to begin to think about innovating for the unbanked. Honestly, when we talk about the whole credit rating thing, I said to myself, I need to go back to the whole Fitch S&P ratings for the country, but individual credit score rating sounded a bit abstract to me because of our setting here presently. But now one thing I do know is the next time I go to collect money, no one should come to me and ask me to show kind of documents. I only have to wear white because I mean over there giving me a 90% credit score. So in Nigeria, about how you look actually, I mean that's what's going to determine the money that's going to say give her an extra seat or a cup of coffee to go. That's terrible. Perception. It's important though. It's not really about what you have in your ledger, but thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us, of course, to talk about the women who are running things in this industry. Now, this particular session, or the next session, is in partnership with African Women in Fintech and Payments, AWFP. Let's put our hands together for the women coming up at this time. Oh, what is going on? I love you. You really made it rock for me yesterday. Thank you once again for doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our panelists. Let's start with Professor Yinka David West, Associate Dean, Lagos Business School. This is going to be joining us online. Is Professor present? All right. Well, this is our final session this afternoon. I want to say a very big thank you for everyone who's in the room here.
So it goes
those who are also online as well. Staying with us. We also have Abeije Momo, SVP and Head West Africa, MasterCard. Please put your hands together as well. So they're all ladies, and we'd like to be recognized. This is not my fault that your ladies aren't here, but show them. It'll be your turn tomorrow, maybe next year. We have Ola Williams, Country Manager, Microsoft. Please put your hands together for her. We have Lebo Mark Gobudi, DFS expert, and Dayo Ademola, MD Branch International. Please put your hands together for them. And of course, we have Dr. Anilo Emua. She was here earlier on, rather online. She was a fantastic moderator on one of our sessions that we had today. She's the founder and director of Andis Consulting. Professor Yinka David West is going to be the moderator for this session. Welcome, ladies. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And it's an honor and a pleasure to lead this panel conversation as the MC said, just ladies. So when you start queuing up or getting on this panel. So today we have with us Ebi Momo, who is the Senior Vice President and Head of West Africa at MasterCard. We have Ms. Ola Williams, who is also the Country Manager at Microsoft. We have Ms. Daya Ademola, the MD of Branch. And we have Ms. Lebo Mogabudi, who is a DFS expert. And also we have Dr. Anilo Emua. And the first thing we're going to do today, before we talk about getting to our conversation about Fintech and accelerating women's leadership in the Fintech sector, is Dr. Emua is going to introduce us to the African women in finance and payments. So over to you, Dr. Emua.
Okay, now I hope you can hear me because I've lost my video for some reason. It's back. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Professor Yinka, for that introduction, and delighted to be here again for this very particular and special session. Now, Fintech is obviously making waves in the financial sector, with innovation, creating value, driving financial inclusion, and opportunities are absolutely flourishing. Yet, female representation in Fintech in leadership is lower than it is even in the whole of the whole of the tech sector, which we know has low representation. Now, how can we therefore close this gap? And this is what it is we do with the African Women in Fintech and Payments Network. We are a network that gathers African women across the continent in order to encourage the insertion into the industry, encourage growth and flourishing. It is actually the only Pan-African platform for women working in these areas that is dedicated to building a community for women in fintech and payments. It brings women together in a sector that has been male-dominated to achieve greater impact as a community and to advance diversity and inclusion in the sector's workplace and leadership. Also, very importantly, the network encourages women working in this space to contribute to building the payments industry while also empowering women to realize the full individual potential and position themselves for individual success. AWFP also showcases renowned and upcoming female industry experts and role models, paving the way to success for young women. And we are so delighted that we have in this panel several of our members, indeed several of our leadership, members of our leadership in Nigeria. So we have Professor Yinka David West. We are honored to have her as a trustee and also as an advisory committee member. We also have Dayo Ademola, who is a board committee member in Nigeria. And we have Lebo Mogabudi, who is a DFS expert and who is a member in South Africa. So we will have in the chat, I think we have a link in the chat for you to learn about us, and women who are here, join us and do share the link. And at this point, I will hand over to Professor Yinka for what I know will be an exciting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emua. I think what we've observed today is that whether we like it or not, technology is one of the male-dominated industries. but yet we have women who are advancing in those sectors, and that's the conversation we're here to have today. But we're not just about to have those conversations about the women, we also want to think about our organization and how, what strategies and what opportunities can we leverage to ensure that we can engender our organizations and advance women in this space, because we all know that there's a business case for women. It makes sense to have women in the organization that bring a different diversity into the organization, and it makes sense, right? So I'm going to start with my ladies, and I'll start with you, Ola. All right? So don't mind me. I'm not going to go in any particular order. So this is the time I want us to amplify our voices. Ola, tell us, brag a little bit, because women, we don't brag, right? So this is the time, let's amplify. How did you get here? How did you make it? What distinguishes you? Tell us. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor Yinka. I'm quite excited to share my experience with the audience today. Uh, Women in technology is something that I'm very passionate about because I am in it. I have first-hand experience, when you sit in the room, you are the only female on the table. It can be very overwhelming. So it's very important for me to continue to drive conversation that will motivate more women to come to the table and see technology industry as a place and a comfortable place for them. So I'm glad to share, my journey hasn't really been all by myself. I think one of the things that really made me to be successful in this journey is the support structure that I have around me, right? Right from, people that believe in me, mentoring, also having open discussions and encouragement to say, look, even if you're the only person in the room, you have a voice, speak up. So I always encourage allyship in terms of, helping more women to come to the table. Mentoring is something that is super, super critical, and we need to really be deliberate about mentoring women in technology. So it's not the generic type of mentoring that, oh, look, I have a mentor here. But it has to be tailored, it has to be deliberate, and it has to be planned. Look, and it's also, there are different challenges along the way, but as women, we need to believe that all these challenges is meant to bring out
Don't go into challenges yet. What distinguishes you? How did you get there? Sell it.
Look, I always tell people, if there's nothing special about me, it's just being who you are. I think one of the things that I think work well for me is also my disposition to gender bias. Initially, when I faced gender discrimination, probably I'm on the table and people are asking men to speak, ignorantly, not sometimes deliberately or ignorantly forget to ask me to speak. I make sure that I speak, but not only speak because I want my voice to be heard, but I am coming from a position of this is the value I can bring to the table. And people can recognize that. And I think I want to encourage more women to adopt that disposition. Because when we look at it from a hostile perspective, that I'm the only woman in the room, I need to make sure that my voice is heard, then it will land differently. But if you come from a position of value, that I want to add value, I have the potential to add value, and I need to create opportunity for myself to really add this value, people will see it, they will recognize it, they will praise it, and they will also want more because we have added value. Thank you.
Thanks, Ola. So we'll come back to you on some of those challenges that you mentioned, but I think what we're hearing is, rather than tokenism, just having a seat at the table, really bring yourself to the conversation, add value, increase, and really show your worth and your mettle in that sense. Great, fantastic. Eddie, how about you? Tell me, what distinguishes you? SBP, MasterCard, international company, tell us. Beat your own drums, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Yinka. First, let me start by thanking the Fintech Association of Nigeria, the organizer of the Nigerian Fintech Week, and for the opportunity. And African women in fintech and payments, I just want to say thank you for this unique panel. of discussants this afternoon, and also for all the inspiring, mentoring that you have done to women in the fintech space. To your questions, Professor Inga, one of the things that I've had a great journey, I must say, and it's been a wonderful journey in the past over 2 decades, spanning across banking, and then now I having the opportunity to lead the MasterCard team across West Africa. It's a great honor and a great privilege. But one of the things I would say, what distinguishes me is 2 things, really: commitment and a lot of focus. Because there were times where, along the journey, there were times to just give up and say, you know what, you've had enough. You've done X, Y, Z. I think it's time to stop. But I think that whole thing about focus has really helped me to get to where I am. And then to what Ola said earlier, I have had a great support system. I mean, I'm starting from the home front, I've had a great supporting spouse. And then again, I've had the opportunity to work with people who really supported me, giving me the opportunity, because sometimes you don't get to where you get to except you are given that opportunity. And I've had the privilege and the opportunity to be in some of the places I've been throughout my journey. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. So I'll come back. But so what you're telling me is that you have a foundation, that foundation of support, right? That grounds you.
Yeah.
But then on top of that support, you add grit, right? And then with that grit, you can actually just go places, right? Lego, tell us, is that the same in your context? So Lego is South African, but she's still a woman in payments and finance and doing great things as well. So tell us, does that play out universally?
I think so, yes. I would say it does. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for having me on the panel. I'd say what has distinguished me in my career is, first of all, clarity of purpose, passion, and pursuing to be a problem solver in Africa. So passionate about financial inclusion, passionate about leveraging technology for purpose, leveraging technology to provide impact to small businesses, to the unbanked and underbanked, and that's been the common thread throughout my career. And what has distinguished me probably is, even as a South African, having experience across multiple emerging markets, having the opportunity to work in Pakistan, in Nepal, in Nigeria, as well, in Kenya, in Tanzania, having lived in Kenya, having felt the challenges myself, living in Kenya, and really experiencing the challenge I can be a problem solver. But I'd say, in short, it's passion, it's courage, also courage. So courage to say yes when opportunities present themselves. I think that's something that's definitely required for women. When an opportunity presents itself, to say yes and learn while you go through it. And then when you're thrown into the deep end, to swim. Right? I remember my first experience when, as part of Fundamo, so I was part of the Fundamo team, which was acquired by Visa, and that's how I got to work in multiple markets, and also worked with Gemalto in multiple markets. And when I was asked to go to Pakistan to do a project in Pakistan, I said yes. Was I scared? Yes, I was. Went to the project and did the mission on the ground to help a bank with digital financial solutions on the ground.
Great. Thanks, Lebo. And Dayo, let's hear your own story. Go ahead, please.
Hi, so just, as with everybody else, just again to say thank you for having me here today. This is a great opportunity to speak to everyone, both online and in person. I would say for me, the big, if I'm looking back now, because a lot of the time when you're in it, you're not actually thinking about, it all looks like a plan, of course, when you're looking back on it. Doesn't feel like one necessarily when you're actually going through it. One of the things that really stood out for me is from very, very early childhood, I always had very strong, very accomplished women to look up to on both sides of my family. So I mean, on my dad's side, I had aunts who was an aunt who was the first senior advocate of Nigeria. I had an aunt who was like the first female permanent secretary in the federal government, that kind of thing. And my father, in particular, was always very particular with his daughters to say there's absolutely nothing you cannot do. If you wanted to play basketball and you were too good for the girls' team, absolutely try out for the boys' team. there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? If you want to go into STEM, if you want to go into business, whatever it is you want to do, there's absolutely nothing stopping you except yourself. So therefore, there's nothing stopping you. And that's the approach that I took to everything. It's the approach that I took to my schooling. It's the approach, just as Mabel said, saying yes is very important. A lot of the times, because I take mentoring very seriously, a lot of the time when you talk to other young women, there's this thinking of, well, what if I'm not too good for that? You almost never hear that for the guy. You almost never hear that for the man. It's, I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure it out when I get there. And typically there's a whole failing forward and just learning as you go along that a lot of the time as women we hold ourselves back from. And sort of coming from the background that I did, I already have this ingrained in me, and it's something that I think women should have ingrained in them as well. I mean, seize every opportunity. The worst that can happen is that you will fail, but there's really no failure because you're going to learn something that you take on to your next position or your next role or your next opportunity. So without speaking about the specifics of how I've navigated my career thus far, I think that's just the mindset. Of course, sometimes I have to remind myself of that because you do get scared and you do get look around you and think, perhaps yes, but not right now. For certain opportunities that come your way, but that's just my mindset that I think has been really, really helpful in shaping out my career.
Great. Thank you all very much, ladies. And audience, one thing you can say is I gave them the opportunity to give their chance, but they're still very conservative and humble about it. But one thing that stuck out was nobody mentioned degrees, education, etc. It was all about some of the things that they don't teach you in school. And this is where we need conversations like this, because it's not about what you know, it's about really how you project what you know and how you take those risks, right? Therefore, you learn, you swim, you tread water, but you won't drown. Okay, so we have to also be more risk taking. So ladies and gentlemen, let's start with some of the painful. It wasn't, we've given the sweet side and we sugarcoated everything. Yeah, I had grades, I had family, I had support. Okay, so how many of us have had those tearful moments in the office and you're like, I just want to get out of here and quit, right? Eddie, let me start with you because I know you sort of alluded to it first. So let me start with you, Eddie.
Okay, Prof. I think I know that one of the things that a lot of people spoke about was the days of tears is where when you actually are in a room, you find yourself that you are doing so much more than your male counterpart. And I've had that, there were times where I was like, maybe I have to do so much more. If, for example, that a male counterpart was saying delivery, say 5, you may have to do 10 just to be able to get it out there, which is why I was really, really excited joining Mastercard, where, I mean, this is an organization that is really committed to leading charge in reshaping the way our world is designed or coded. One of the things that I've gotten since joining Mastercard is that they understand that equality is not just a women issue. I know today we are all women and then we are talking about what are the things that we do, but really, it's not a women issue.
Yes. So what you're telling me, Echo, I think we've lost you for a bit. Go ahead.
Yes, I was saying that it is the fact that we understand equality is not a women's issue is so that we know that gender equality is essential for individual businesses, communities, and the economies to thrive. So it's not really, a women's issue. And yes, we have these challenges, but there are organizations like Mastercard that is, so exemplary when it comes to gender equality. Mastercard, for example.
Anyway, hold those thoughts. You're going to come back, tell us how to do it. Because again, the whole idea is that we want to also help businesses, not just to talk about, oh, let's do equality, but how do we do equality in a way that makes sense to everybody? So you told me that, so one of the things that really pained or irked you was this issue about the performance measurement system, right? Where women are expected to do 20 times more than men, and yet the same rewards, or maybe even fewer rewards, fewer accolades, fewer recognitions, etc. So Dayo, what irked you? What irked you in your career growth, especially around your growth and gender equality?
So I think mine was a sense of impatience. So let me, we mentioned that we didn't beat our chest enough, but I've always thought myself to be largely overqualified for a lot of the roles that I took. And my main thinking, and because, I will work the hardest, I will stay the latest, I will do whatever needs to be done to learn as much as I can. So an overwhelming sense of impatience, and people just, and I think women have this issue a lot more than men do. People just telling you to wait your turn. Wait your turn, whether it's a promotion, whether it's the next big project, whether it's the, sort of the big meeting or the rewards that come with good performance is you have, but it's that person's turn. That's the thing I think that irked me the most across a few organizations that I've worked with. And the more I've been able to get into leadership positions, I have made it a point not to apply the same sort of process in rewarding people. You reward people for good work. And the other thing as well is, the ethos that I was always taught, that I've always imbibed, is you perform at the level above where you are already before you get promoted into it, right? And that's how I've always looked to perform in every role that I've been in, largely. So I get really impatient when somebody says to me, I agree with you that, you are a deputy manager, but you're performing senior manager at AGM level, but just wait your turn. It's maybe this time next year, we'll see what we can do for you, like it's a favor. And that, yeah, that's, I think I've seen that happen a lot more to women, that just be grateful that you're here in the first place, right? Now you want a promotion on top of that. I think you're asking for too much. That's basically, that's what grinds my gears personally.
So thanks, Dan. I think we'll come back to speak to that when we're talking about solutions and strategies. So it's about this issue of tokenism and this linear model or this linear process that we feel we must follow as we go through the process. So Lebo, let me come to you in terms of what you've done different markets, you've worked in different sectors, different social norms guiding, especially places like Pakistan. So what struck you or what irked you?
Some of the challenges I've had is probably being overlooked or undermined. So I'll start with being undermined, where you say something, you raise an idea, you raise a solution, and either that idea, that solution, your voice is not heard, you feel unheard, or it's overlooked, or somebody else brings up the idea and then it seems to be noticed, right? And this either happens in meetings, that even happens at a board level, in boardrooms, and that's a challenge that I've had and actually still have. But what I've learned over time is when that happens, when I'm being undermined, is either to remind the person who's undermining me about the work that I've done, to remind them about the results and the deliverables, right? Or when a person makes you feel like you're in the role because of your organization, right? You're in the role because you're a woman, or you're in the role because you're African, reminding them that actually you have performed and reminding them of the results that you have delivered. So that's one thing when it comes to being undermined or overlooked. And then another challenge that I've had is actually probably impatience. So impatience, and I agree with Daya, but on a different level, impatience with myself or impatience with of corporates is that, very highly competitive environment where everybody is trying to achieve and trying to be seen, but sometimes you get into the rut of doing the work, putting your head down, doing the work, and not blowing your own horn. So you start at the beginning that, we need to blow our own horn. And what I did at the beginning of my career, just do the work, put your head down and do the work, and you think that your work will speak for itself. We're told your work will speak for itself. But the truth is that you also need to blow your own horn. You need to almost shout about the work that galvanize sponsors, galvanize other people to blow your horn. Develop that support system who will blow your horn. Because sometimes no one will do it for you if you don't ask. And this thing that the work will speak for yourself, I just don't think it's true.
Okay. So Lagos, the work can speak, but what you're also advising is that we hire town criers to do more of the promotion, but do it in a subtle manner, because even when I asked you, let's do the town crier, everybody was still very humble. So Ola, tell us, what has irked you, what challenges have you observed?
Yeah, so I think my story also
resonate with what I've heard in terms of, women we do a lot more to prove our capabilities. But the most challenging aspect of it is even when we do that and it's not being recognized. I recall a scenario where I shared an achievement that I made with my efforts with one manager. And when he was reporting it, he actually removed my name and put a guy's name. Honestly, I was broken. I'm like, what is this? So to the previous speaker's point, it's very important that we learn to tell our stories ourselves, because when we always give it to another person to relate your story, they will interpret it based on their own bias. So I think that is really, really important to learn to amplify what we do in a way that really shows the value that we bring to the table, and also make sure that your voice is heard in a positive way, because it builds trust. You are the one that delivers the results, you're the one, telling your story. It's more compelling and help people to trust you more. And I think the second aspect is also, responding to adversity at work. Because those are very important areas. As a female, it's natural that we face adversity. I hope it will improve as we continue to educate more people. But I would not allow that to break me. So resilience, being super resilient is important as a female, especially in this industry. So those qualities are really important and critical to continue to ensure that we are able to push forward and move ahead.
Great, thanks a lot. So, Dr. Lu, I think that what I'm hearing is that we need to do some more work in the AWFP on storytelling, right? Because again, I think that this issue about storytelling and projection. But so Dr. Lu, I hope we can do that with the AWFP, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for that contribution, ladies, and it's always great to hear from you, your personal stories, and absolutely we can do that.
Okay, great. So I want to go to the question. There's a question in the panel about the intersectionality and the challenge of intersectionality, especially when it comes to status, socioeconomic status, and just not even being in the room at all. So this question is from Oluwakamu, and he says, what about young ladies who are not privileged by birth and have the double challenge of gender and exclusion by their social status? How do we find and support Marie Curies who might be potentially lost in Bariga and Ajegule? And this is important because I think it was Labour that mentioned that, or someone mentioned that gender is not the only cause of exclusion. So I think what Olu is challenging us is, how do we think about diversity, equality, and inclusion from a broader space rather than just from a gender space? Eddie, do you have any thoughts on this?
Hi. Hi, Prof. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I think that's a great question, and to this point, it's more about what are the initiatives that we have as organizations to be able to support this, because it goes beyond just an individual or a community. I'll share with you an initiative that we have at MasterCard. It's a Guest for Tech program, where we partner with Junior Achievement Nigeria, and then they are responsible for the lab in financial inclusion, and then we address some of the challenges that contribute to the exclusion of women in the economy. So the Guest for Tech, for example, leverages our deep expertise in payment technology and innovation to bridge the STEM skills. And I think that's a lot of people during this session that I've had the opportunity to listen to have talked about the STEM skill gap. And then how do you inspire young ladies? What this program does is that we inspire young girls between the ages of 8 and 12 years. And so this program will incorporate exciting adventures, bringing topics like coding, cryptology, and it's facilitated by employee volunteers. So things like this, things like the Guest for Tech would address some of those young ladies in those areas, because it's open for anyone who's any young person who's interested. In the last couple of years, we're able to reach our initial milestone of educating 1 million girls. And that's really become really important, because in doing such initiative, we're able to impact a lot more girls. This program has a new inspiring global reach of 5 million girls by 2025. So people like the ones that we have talked about will have the opportunity to join such initiative.
So, Olu, I think that the answer to that is that there's programs around communities. So I think everywhere we have the programs, and I'm sure Ola, you have programs as well within Microsoft space as well. But I think, how do we ensure that we can really go down market? Because that's another issue in terms of, we're talking about financial inclusion. How do we ensure we can take it to the most rural location in the north or something or the other? Ola, tell us what programs do you have for girls as well?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's important because it's important for female or diverse people with diverse backgrounds to come into tech because they bring a lot of experience and perspective. One of the programs that we have at Microsoft, I'm going to share two. The first one to support female into tech industry is called the Women Textile Initiative that we have in partner with one of the NGO partners, Tech for Dev, where we provide trainings on different technology solution area for female across Nigeria and focusing on the SAP communities to ensure that they have access to coding, training, data and AI, cybersecurity, and be able to build either their own business or be gainfully employed in any of our ecosystems. But of course, that is talking about that broadly. We also have another program called LEAP, and the idea of LEAP is to provide a pathway for anyone, especially females, that did not have STEM background or but have the desire to come into technology industry. So provide that pathway for them. It's an intensive program that we run, and we've seen a lot of success coming out of that with people being gainfully employed within our partner ecosystem and also Microsoft as well.
Great. Thank you very much. So I think the idea is that there's programs, girls into these programs and collect them from the grassroots and build them up. So this is a grassroots innovation and thinking about the value chains. Dayo, I have one for you, and I want you to talk about this regarding also access to funding capital and fundraising. So the question is from Titilayo, and it says, I really appreciate the Africa Women in Fintech and Payments for this session. I want to ask, is there really gender discrimination in the fintech space, or you are given opportunities based on your knowledge? So can you just talk to us about around the gaps we see in the fintech space currently, around women working in that sector, women raising finance in that sector, etc.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Yinka. So, I mean, the short answer is yes, there is a gender gap, and yes, there is a level of discrimination when it comes to the fintech space. Like there is more broadly across markets. So, for example, you find in a lot of companies, you find that women being employed in the minority. If you look at, if you take a look at companies, particularly fintechs that have gotten funded in the last maybe 5 years, you find that women-led and women-founded companies are in the extreme minority. But one of the issues here as well is it leads from the previous question, right? It's all about creating a funnel of women who have the right education, who are willing, who want to go into STEM, and there are so many that do, but the discrimination sort of starts really far back in the value chain. So by the time you get to women who are starting companies, who are trying to join companies, then the funnel is much smaller, right? At Branch, for example, it's actually a central ethos that we are gender balance in all that we do. So for example, in all 3 operating markets that we operate in currently, all the managing directors are women. In India, in East Africa, and in Nigeria, right? It's being led by women. And this is, we have, when we're looking to hire, we make sure that our funnel is as diverse as possible. And we have, mandates to make sure that we have half of our company is women and half is men, right? So that kind of targeted and intentional intentional diversity is what is needed to actually break the cycle, right? Because a lot of people say, that, well, I tried to hire you, it's whoever is qualified that I hired. That's actually not the case. Human beings are prejudiced to favor those that look, that sound, and have the same experience as they do. So if you have a group of men who are the ones in charge of hiring, you just have the cycle perpetuating itself, unless there's some intentionality around diversifying the workforce. So that's what that is. And there's a lot of programs, as you have mentioned out there, that are there to coach women and to help women, build the skills that are necessary to excel as well, and to just make sure that also on the receiving side, we build that into intentionality as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, So you're going into the next segue, which is what strategies can we put in place to ensure that we can close the gender gaps, and not just think if they will close by themselves, but how can we be intentional about it, knowing that we do have masculinist cultures within our organizations. How do we close those gaps? So, as you started by saying we need to be intentional about the policies and the practices we put in place. Evie, can you tell us a bit more in terms of how does MasterCard drive gender equality within the organization?
Thank you so much, Prof. At Mastercard, just like I said earlier, we have made gender equality a central guiding theme, not only in our diversity and inclusion efforts, and even the hiring practices, which is what I talked about earlier, but also in our business strategy in general. So we're working with fintechs today to drive digital and financial inclusion in Nigeria, and this aligns to our global commitments to bring 1 billion people into the digital economy by 2025, and then consequently help transform the financial sector, the financial service sector. In 2019, we launched this MasterCard Accelerate. I think one of my colleagues had talked about it earlier during the opening address. It's a global initiative that sort of simplifies the way MasterCard works with fintechs, offering a simple, single entry point to the MasterCard ecosystem. So now the Accelerate contain 4 award-winning programs that I really like. The MasterCard FinTech Express, and that is the one that is designed to facilitate emerging fintechs launch and expansion. Then there's the MasterCard Engage that was launched in Lagos in April, just this April, in April 2019.
Are they specific to women as well in terms of those are
external
facing, but how about internal facing as well?
It's not specific to just women because this is open to both, but the fact that these programs are available, women need to know. And the really one I really like is the MasterCard Start Path. This is the one that invites later stage startups to participate in a 6-month program, providing opportunity to scale, to secure strategic investment. Because I want to believe that there are a lot of women that are listening in on this conversation today, and they may just be at a point where they will require some of this program. And I think one of the things that we have said in this discussion today is that how we don't only make this up, the men can't be the one aware of this. It is available, it is out there. It is how we take advantage of them. That's what is really important. So, Prof, I think it's important that we also let the women know that this is available. For example, during the research that we have shared, when women work, economies grow. We know that. Yes. So far, as startups that are women-led, we have raised nearly $1 billion in capital investment. So what we'll continue to do at MasterCard is to push for network investors and angels who will help, bring in this incremental, bring in such incremental number of female founders and give them a path to scale.
Okay, so we're sort of doing questions and taking the time out to go. So I'm looking at strategies that organizations and corporates need to take around changing the stereotypes and the biases that we already have. Lego, do you have any thoughts to share with us based on what you've seen in your experiences?
From a support point of view, what perspective?
Yeah, the organization practices and policies.
Yeah, so from a support point of view, so yes, a lot of organizations that I've either been part of or consulted to may have mentorship within them, right? They have mentorship structures, they have conversations, gender equality programs that have been spoken about by many of my panelists. However, I also want to make a point of seeking support externally outside the company. I think that's also really important, right? So seeking mentors and sponsors within the company. So the first thing is mentors outside the company in terms of how do I navigate the situation, and they could be outside of even the industry. The one thing I've realized with challenges faced by female leaders are universal, right? So you could seek a sponsor outside of your industry, but you can also seek a mentor who's a male. Right, you don't only have to learn from other females, you can actually seek sponsors and mentors who are men, right? And also a sponsor, just to make the point of the sponsor, I think that really works in terms of somebody who's in a leadership position who will elevate you, is also really critical, and that's what I've seen work.
Okay, great. So sponsorship and mentoring. So what we have is both formal and informal practices that organizations and we women also need to adapt. So we can't wait for things to
And
happen.
sorry, add one more point.
Go ahead.
Can I add one more point?
Yeah, go ahead.
And to that is also seeking somebody who will actually tell you when you've gone wrong and asking for constructive feedback. So the one thing is help you, guide you, elevate you, great, but also somebody who will actually tell you when you have messed up.
Okay, great. So it's that man in the mirror approach as well. So we need to be mindful that we're not all that yet. So we always need that feedback to continuously grow. So in terms of retention strategies, hiring strategies are important for organizations to invite. But I think, Nebo, one thing I want to say here, and I know we have a lot of men in the room and on the conversation, is we also need men as supporters and promoters of gender equality. And someone mentioned it earlier, it's not just about women, there are many intersectionalities, there's persons with disabilities, there's age, there's social upbringing and social status. So how do we build truly diverse organizations and ensure that everyone has a chance? So ladies and gentlemen, I have one more question that I want us to take, and my screen is sort of is looking at me in a funny way. So how do we make the best of the new remote working culture? And this is going back to the perception that women are the primary caregivers and might not have that balance of time, right? How do we make sure that the best out of the new remote working culture to support smart women, significant number that had to drop out of their careers because of family. So what is the balance and how do we ensure that we have that balance? And I know, Ola, I'll give you 2 seconds to sort of just talk about this in terms of the support structures that you put in place.
So I think for us at Microsoft, one of the support structure is to allow people to take caregiver time off. If you need to give care to maybe a family member, children, you are empowered to take such time off. And I think the managers are also trained to understand the how to care for employees, especially with the context of understanding the challenges of women at work. It's very important that we empathize with our team members, try to check in, let's understand what is happening to them, how can you support. It's really critical, and once it's shown at the top is driving this message, it's easier for us to adopt it as a culture within the organization. So it's really important for leadership within organization to really see that we need to empower women by ensuring that we provide an enabling environment for them to thrive, and when it's required for them to really take some time off or have flexible working hour, it's okay, and we should build a structure to make sure that that happens and they are empowered to take up such opportunity.
Yes. So thanks, Ola. And I think that what Ola is saying is that it's not just about knowing that, oh yeah, let's do gender equality, but again, awareness is important. And then also gender sensitivity training. How do we understand what are the real issues? How do we understand our own our own internal biases and stereotypes that we've grown up with, and we're basically not even aware that they exist. So for example, we make gender statements, we write policies that we're using he, or we make gender statements like, oh, we have a crash and the mother can bring her child. Why is it just the mother? So we need to be mindful and begin to undo some of these things. So ladies, before we close, I want you to sort of, again, role modeling is one of the things we've spoken about really being as an important component of leadership in the female sector and the fintech sector. So if you had to give your younger self a message, right? So very quickly, what will that message to your younger self be? You know, what would you do differently, or what would you tell your younger self as you're sitting here today? So Lebo, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Inka. So the first one would be to stay true to myself, or younger self, stay true to yourself. I think sometimes when we join organizations, especially corporate, which is generally male orientated, we try to become like men. And in that pursuit of trying to become like men, we lose ourselves. So to stay true to myself, to stay authentic, that's one thing, and to be feminine. To continue to be feminine, that being masculine is not necessarily the way to be. It's okay to be kind, it's okay to be compassionate, it's okay to honor who I am naturally, right? I don't need to hide that part of myself in order to succeed. You know, you can be successful, you can be great and be kind and be compassionate. The two are not polar opposites. So that's another thing that I'd say to myself. And also that there's seasons, right? When you're having a challenge, that seasons come and seasons go. When people are experiencing a challenge at the moment in whatever, whether it's you're in business, you're a fintech, you're an entrepreneur, you're a startup, you're starting something, or you're a professional in a corporate, is that there's seasons come and seasons go. But there's also other people out there that have gone through what you're going through, so actually ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. I also think sometimes successful women, or you have this thing that you have to get through the motion and get through the challenges by yourself, but it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to be vulnerable, show vulnerability.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Hey, Eddie, how about you?
I'd say to my younger self, see, don't be afraid to take that opportunity. The fear of failure shouldn't prevent you from taking that one-time opportunity. You must take it. Don't be afraid. You'll be shocked that that male counterpart has exactly the same feeling. But the difference is that he is bold enough to go out and grab that opportunity. I say, don't be afraid. Take that opportunity. And secondly, learn. You have to learn because there's nobody that knows everything. So keep learning because they will come in handy, and know that as you learn, you will get there at the top.
Great. Thank you very much. Dayo, you're good.
Thank you. For me, I would echo, because that really resonates with me, be less afraid. I know I spoke about being courageous and everything, but I still look back and look at some opportunities that fear was the only thing that stopped me from going for certain things in certain places. So just be less afraid. The second thing for me would be the reassurance that you will find your tribe. So a lot of times, like for me personally, as when I was in my 20s, even into my 30s, just feeling like I don't quite fit in here. These people are not quite my people, or they don't understand me, or kind of what Label spoke about, trying to be something that you're not because that's how you will fit in. I think just the message that you will eventually find your tribe, which I have to say with the people I work with now, working at Branch, just the flexibility and the value system and just the actual work that we're doing, all of that is sort of things that I've been looking for years that are just now all of them clicking into place, right? So yeah, so it's yeah, just be less sure that you will eventually find your tribe.
Great, thank you so much, Diane. Ola?
I think I quite agree with what has been said, but I would love to add to my younger self is, look, don't be afraid to fail, especially for women. When you the tendency to feel, probably if I were a male, maybe I wouldn't have failed in this area. But it's okay to fail because you have learned something from that. And look, it's just okay to continue to be resilient. Keep going. Don't be afraid of obstacles, because most of the time, I'm actually speaking from experience, obstacles, if handled properly, with the right level of support, is the pathway to success. Just keep going. The world is waiting to celebrate your success.
Great. Thank you very much, ladies. And one of the, so audience, all we've heard is, my ladies have been vulnerable. They've expressed their vulnerabilities to their younger selves, and they did it no holds barred. So what we're showing here is that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to say you're going to try, and even if you fail, you're not going to dig yourself into that rabbit hole and stay there. So ladies and gentlemen, you realize that being in a leadership position in this industry takes knowledge, it takes courage, it takes grit, and it takes all these other things that, yes, they've shared with you today, and we need to see them as opportunities rather than just, oh, until I get all the pieces fixed, then I will not start doing my own journey, I won't start my own journey, but the pieces will fit as you take the first step. Okay, so Ola and Eddie, you shared information about some of the programs that you have. Could you please share those with the organizers so they can also actually build awareness and amplify them to the audience? So somebody is asking that question in terms of how do we get all this information, etc., etc. And then I'm not sure if we have much more time, or how much time we have left, but we'll try and answer this last question. And I think someone spoke about this. He said, is it too true that women like to make sure that
we're actually out of time. We're exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you so much. I wasn't quite sure. But ladies, thank you very much. Nigeria Fintech, we thank you for giving us this platform to share our vulnerabilities and to express the love we have for the work that we do. And I will hand back over to you. Thank you, Dr. Eko, and we look forward to engaging more on the African Women in Finance and Fintech. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Put your hands together. Thank you so much. Professor Ika West there as a moderator, Associate Dean, Lagos Business School, Dr. Nina Emuwa, founder and director of Abundance Consulting. She was also a moderator here today. We also had Ebehije Momo, SVP and Head West Africa MasterCard, Ola Williams, Lebo Mokoda Budi, hope I got that right. Yes, DFS expert, and Dayo Ademola, MD Branch International. Ladies, thank you very much. I really, really enjoyed that session. And then I took up something from there. The fact that women need to be heard, the fact that we need to blow our own horns. But I just did a little practice before that session. And I said, women only. Just 2 people answered. No one, like if you don't speak, of course in mass communication, we call it women in the media and women and the media. Now the fact that women just refuse to speak up, even when they get access, when you get that platform to say something. I mean, Terry Dollface did say, I'm not one to toot my horn, or beep beep. So blow the horn with all due respect. Again, we're talking about the fact that, how do you pick up the girls from the grassroots? And I'd say, we can pick a lead from Tunde Olokoya. Tunde Olokoya is the head or the founder of Chess in Slums Africa. And of course, I'm sure we've heard the story about what he did with how he turned the kid with cerebral palsy in Makoko, to a genius in chess. I mean, the boy sat down with the governor who has been playing chess for years, and the kid who just learned chess in 2 weeks, was at a draw with the governor. So in all honesty, I think we need to be a little bit more intentional about walking that talk and ensuring that we get these girls on board as well. A whole lot has to go on, honestly. Change that whole mindset and changing the narrative. I know that's about his, but her as well. I'll take a note from what is being done in Rwanda, and I get that in Rwanda, the government to ensure that women fit in, not just that whole talk about the gender gap thing or balancing it out. Left certain positions for women. And when those in civil service came back and said, we cannot find qualified women for that position, the president said, leave it open until we find women who will go in there. And he did not just stop there. He ensured that women closed earlier than men in Rwanda. Why? Because they needed to go back to school or take up some extra courses to ensure that they qualify for those positions. Bearing in mind that women carry a whole lot on their shoulders. So again, I repeat, we need to be a little more intentional about empowering women, getting women to the top, especially in the tech space. Ladies, thank you once again for your contribution. Very big thank you to our audience online and those present here as well. It should be interesting having you all join us. I hope we have more participants online than we have present here. That's really fantastic and amazing to know. Tomorrow, the conference continues. There's a whole lot packed for you tomorrow. You wouldn't want to miss that at all. Ladies and gentlemen, come for my co-anchor. I go to that one entrance. I can try. Fred, you can go back and I'll do it again. You know, I know how to read the thing. Celebrity journalists, ladies and gentlemen. You know, Fred Abbasa is a should have an attract. Fred Abbasa. Has to be complete. Well, I'm on you Sunday, and yes, we'll be seeing again tomorrow. Yes, right?
Thank you all for being with us from morning to this morning, and see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a fantastic evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
CNETv, the first and leading 24/7 live broadcasting blockchain, cryptocurrency and Fintech TV application. On our mobile app, you have access to our latest news updates ranging from esports, fintech, iGaming, blockchain, cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence. We bring to you interviews, analyses, cryptocurrencies, market reviews and live events. Download our app today from your iOS or Google Play Store or on our website at CNETv.io. CNETv, objectivity is our watchword. CNETv, the first and leading 24/7 live broadcasting blockchain, cryptocurrency and Fintech TV application. On our mobile app, you have access to our latest news updates ranging from esports, fintech, iGaming, blockchain, cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence. We bring to you interviews, analyses, cryptocurrencies, market reviews and live events. Download our app today from your iOS or Google Play Store or on our website at CNETv.io. CNETv, objectivity is our watchword. CNETv, the first and leading 24/7 live broadcasting blockchain, cryptocurrency and Fintech TV application. On our mobile app, you have access to our latest news